Welcome to this brief demonstration of the FlexBeat Metronome app for the iPhone. When the app first opens, you'll see New at the top of the screen and a blank area where you can create a metric pattern. For an example, I'll enter this excerpt you see on the left. The first measure has a 3/4 meter, so I'll enter 3/4 notes. Next, I'll add a bar line, but since there are two measures of 3/4, I'll use a shortcut and drag this slider to ×2 and then enter a bar line. Next, there's a 5/8 bar, which is grouped 2 plus 3, so I'll enter a quarter and a dotted quarter. Next is a 3/8 bar, so I'll enter dotted quarter, and I'll finish the rest of the excerpt. This 5/8 is grouped 3 plus 2, and finally a 2/4. The pattern viewing area is scrollable to handle larger compositions, and it expands as needed. So at any point, you can play back the pattern with this button, and this switch next to it controls subdivisions, so I will include them. The tempo can be adjusted with this bottom slider and can be slightly adjusted with the plus and minus symbols. Depending on your music excerpt, you may want to adjust the note value for the tempo using this button here, where you can change the note basis of the tempo. But I will leave it as a quarter note. Another playback option that can be helpful for longer excerpts is to begin playback somewhere in the middle of the pattern. Select the measure to start and then play. Deselect the measure to return to full playback. To save the pattern for future use, select Save and enter a title for it. You'll now see the title at the top. If you select My Patterns, the new item is listed, along with some other patterns I saved previously. You can swipe any title to the left and see options to delete, rename, or share your pattern with any other FlexBeat users. When you select Share, a new email is created with a file attachment containing the pattern and a default message with instructions on how the recipient can import the file into their device. At the top of the list is an option to create a new pattern, as we saw earlier. But now I want to reopen the pattern I just saved because I'd like to make a few changes. Since my original excerpt begins at measure 15, I'd like to renumber the pattern measures. Tapping the first measure number brings up a page where I can enter a new starting bar number. And I can also add some introductory measures, which play repetitions of the first measure before the excerpt begins. I'll move this slider to 3 and exit. Now you'll see the new initial bar number and the introductory clicks that precede it. And I will save this again. If you need to modify a pattern, tap on a measure and add or delete notes from the back. And you can also change the repetitions. To delete an entire measure, tap Clear or use the back button until the measure is empty. You can then either re-tap the empty measure to delete it or select another measure for editing. Let's say I'd like to insert an extra measure at bar 19. I will select the previous measure, then double tap it, and it inserts the new measure where I can add some notes. You can either save your changes or, to discard them, return to your pattern list and select Discard. Further options and information can be found by selecting the information icon here. This is where you can find your current FlexBeat version identifier, and below that are some options for changing click sounds. There are 3 functional types, and you can change them to any combination. There's the initial start of the pattern, then there are the main beats for each note, and then all of the subdivisions of those notes. I'll change the intro and start click and find one that I like. Return to Settings to save your selection. Below these settings, you'll find some switch options. The first one allows playback to loop. The next switch lets you choose your preset value for the subdivide switch for whenever you create a new pattern. And this third switch allows you to hear the intro click sound at the start of each measure as opposed to only hearing it at the start of the pattern. And below that is a media player option to change your audio output device, for example, to an external Bluetooth speaker. My simulated example here doesn't fully behave like a mobile device, but if you were to tap this button, a pop-up display would list all of your currently available output options. At the bottom of this view, there's a tab to select the FlexBeat User Guide, which basically is a handy reference that describes all of the metronome's capabilities that I've discussed here. To use the app as a traditional metronome, go to an empty view and change the tempo and play. When the subdivide switch is enabled, it will add either duple or triple subdivisions based on the note you selected in this tempo button. If the note's a dotted value, as I select here, it'll be a triple subdivision, otherwise it will be duple. To hear just a 5/8 pattern, enter the pattern and play. Note that the app overrides the looping option switch in the settings list and always loops in this case. So I appreciate your watching this demo of the FlexBeat Metronome, and I hope that all this information will help you enjoy using the metronome to its fullest extent. Thank you.